Well, hello, hello. If you think you're not getting the episode, no, you are. You're here. We're here. We are a couple minutes late. There were some technical difficulties, the complications of going live with a guest, but hey, we've done it. We've done it so far. We'll see how it all pans out. Again, the joys of going live, but it is Wednesday. It is time for the Unboring Wedding Show. I am excited to be with you. We are continuing our sort of series on how to be a wedding officiant. I absolutely love talking to members of the Unboring Wedding community, the officiating community. There are hundreds of thousands of us all over the world, and I aim to speak to every last one of you. No, that's not possible. But there are some folks who, over the years in the Unboring Wedding community, whose businesses I've noticed are just really taking off. They exemplify officiating. And so I am having another person on who fits that description this week. She is waiting in the green room, eating charcuterie maybe that she provided herself. I have the worst green room in the world because I don't ship any snacks. But we're thankful for Karen to be here. But I just want to say hello to those of you who chimed in. It has been a hectic morning here. My son's graduation started. My son's he's in elementary school, grade 5. Last year, grade 5. It's a big deal, and he had a school-wide picnic for parents and a thing that started 1 hour before we went live here. And so, of course, with all the pandemonium of an elementary school and all the teachers and all the parents, and then they brought us all outside, and then we didn't know what we were going out there for. But then suddenly all the teachers came out in those giant inflatable costumes, sharks and dinosaurs and capybaras, and they all lined up and they had a race, which was amazing. And lots of laughs, lots of fun. And then the fun was continuing on, and I had no idea that this thing was supposed to last 2 hours. So I had to bail to be here with you, which is why I was a bit scattered. And then Karen and I had to coordinate getting all the tech set up, which, as always, hey, wedding officiants, you know this more than anyone, right? This is a good learning moment where you do the mic check, right? How many of us have done the officiating mic check before the wedding ceremony? And then when the ceremony starts, even though everything was perfect 20 minutes ago and we did the mic check, it craps out, right? And so that's not just that's a universal concept of tech, I believe. And so that's the kind of stuff that was happening. You can test and you can retest and you can confirm everything's great, and then it's start time, and hey, we were 3 minutes late, just like a lot of weddings you officiated, I'm sure. So hello to all of you in the chat. Please say hello, your name, where you're from. You can see some familiar faces here. And I am thrilled that you are here to learn some amazing things from the story of our guest today. We've got Tamara from Loves Park and Carla. A lot of you are saying it's hot. Patrick is from Grand Rapids. It is drizzly here today in New Brunswick, but it is kind of steamy outside. It was perfect weather for a race of dinosaurs, sharks, capybaras, etc. It's a wet, steamy one here. In Texas, it's 93. Wow, we've been craving nice weather for forever, but 93. I don't know. You can probably have your 93. That would make Canadians wilt. Scott's saying, "How's the weather in Italy?" My goodness, because Carla is in Italy. That's amazing. Anita's here from Tennessee. So if you are in the chat, say hello. And you are going to have a chance to, in the chat, pop in some questions as you listen to Karen's story. She is going to talk about how she got started and some of those salient points that ultimately, I mean, somebody's story is interesting just in itself, but we can learn so much from the journey of somebody else. We go through a lot as wedding officiants, like I said, the microphones and things like that. A lot of you wonder and ask about how do you temper the nerves? How do you get from the first wedding to your second wedding? How do you start a business? What are the steps? And so we had Ben as our first guest and Opie, and now Karen. And I just think we have lots to learn. We never have to follow exactly someone else's footsteps. I even say that with Unboring Wedding Academy. You want to start with a guaranteed, proven method and system and style that you know will work, but then you can pivot and make it your own. And a lot of you have done that. I've done that with methods and systems that I've adopted and used at first and then changed. I've talked to you about my officiating journey where I started with a company and adopted what they told me, and then I said, "Well, I wanted to keep streamlining, make it a better way, make it a way that was more authentic to me." And I encourage all of you to do the same. So, again, stay in the chat if you are here. Log into YouTube or Google so you can chat. But without further ado, I do want to bring our guest on, and I'm very excited. She is a wedding officiant out of Florida, the Florida area. She will tell you exactly where, I'm sure. And I had the pleasure of meeting her in person at Wedding MBA last year. We sat across from each other at the Unboring Wedding member dinner, and it was just an absolute thrill and honor to meet her. She's been an incredible, encouraging member of the Unboring Wedding community. And so I am so thrilled to welcome Karen Hooper of Once Upon Two Rings. Welcome, Karen. You are here live. You made it. You're not even related. Good to see you.
And I am going to apologize to everyone for the tardiness and the glitchiness because my Wi-Fi is not great. And welcome to Florida. We had storms last night and it is fritzed everything. So
yeah, I was just going to say, you were telling me earlier that a lot of people were saying there was kind of, it affected the internet connection. Anything, is that the only thing that was negatively impacted by the storm?
Yeah, no, people's garage doors got fried and refrigerators and all kinds of things there. You know, our neighborhood chat was talking about it was a lot of lightning and things are on the fritz. So yeah, welcome to Florida.
So we are fortunate to have you here at all.
Yeah.
And we are grateful. So thanks so much for being here. Now, it's funny because I always like to go back and see when we first crossed paths. So I went way back in my inbox. I didn't talk to you about this yet, but you were one of those very unique, I'd say only a handful of people who purchased the pro course before you purchase the ceremony course. And I don't think I've ever really spoken to you about that. So I don't think I know your journey in terms of, you know, most people who are turning to the internet panicked and find me and all these videos and the course and that they usually are, you know, doing their first one or their second one, but you went straight to like, I'm pro. I want to learn how to get the clients. So maybe take us back before that. A few months after that, you got Academy, which again, maybe you needed or didn't need or whatever. But tell me about how you got into officiating. Maybe what you were doing. You were just living your best life, and then all of a sudden, what? Somebody asked you to officiate a wedding, or was it planned? Take us back. When did that happen? What happened?
So most of 2022, I spent planning my wedding. And my husband and I got married at Disney World because we were big Disney adults. And I loved the planning process. I loved being in the wedding world. And then we were married in January of 2023 and it was all over. And I had like wedding hangover of, wait, I miss being in the wedding world.
Yeah.
And so I had become friendly with our officiant that I had hired to officiate our wedding. So I chatted with her and asked if she would be willing to mentor me. And she said yes. And she was a big Disney officiant. We call her the fairy godmother of Disney weddings. So I shadowed her. I went to 15 Disney weddings with her, just kind of learning the ropes. And it was nice to see venues, but I really felt like I wasn't getting the business side of it from her. And that's when I found your course. So I went right to pro because I knew it had things like contracts and marketing and that type of thing.
Okay.
But then I realized that the original one was good too. So I bought both, thank goodness, and learned all kinds of things. Yeah.
What was that process like? Like you were just shadowing, or did this officiant have you doing some of the work, creating ceremonies? What was that process like, mentoring with somebody? Because it is a good idea. And I talk about that. We really, as officiants, it's best to be networking with other officiants in our area. Again, you're kind of doing everything backwards. You found a mentor before you even really officiated, and then it's great. It shows that there's many paths to success.
Many paths.
So, what was it like shadowing, and what were you up to?
It was a lot of meeting her before, her kind of asking me to assist with things. and prepare for things, mainly just watching her do rehearsals and the
Mm,
ceremonies, taking my own mental notes. But that's what it wasn't. She wasn't giving me a lot. And, she hadn't really mentored before. So it's no
mm.
fault to her. But there wasn't a lot of like business advice as
Okay.
far as that went.
But you were
So,
getting exposure to wedding ceremonies,
yeah.
which is great. Like
Absolutely.
you get
Yes.
to
And
see,
small, big, yeah,
yeah,
inside, outside, vow renewals. So it was nice to watch her do her thing. And like we always say, then you make it your own. I
yeah,
learned some things from her that I thought, oh, I'll put my own twist on it. And,
yeah.
you know, yeah, it was fun. And I got to spend time at Disney World, which, you know, yeah, win win.
So what was so you say there's Disney officiants, like ones that are what, like blessed by the park and allowed in, or
Yeah, so Disney Fairy Tale Weddings is the big kahuna of Disney, and to be on their preferred vendor list, that's when you're like a Disney officiant. So it's you have to do a few Disney weddings, prove that you're good and professional, and
Hmm,
then eventually you make your way onto their preferred vendor list.
okay.
But anyone can marry anyone at Disney. You can bring your own officiant. Uncle Bob can marry you. Florida is a state where, a friend can marry you if they get ordained online. So it's
Okay.
a little bit of a tough market in that way that, people are like, oh, just have my friend marry us for free.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Does that mean that like do you have to clear it with the park first? Like you were saying, like the Disney offers some wedding packages, and you say
yeah,
that's the big kahuna. But how do
yeah.
people just get married at the park?
No. You have to go through Disney Fairy Tale Weddings. I
Oh,
actually
okay.
have had some inquiries from couples who just want me to come and marry them in their hotel room, and it's a Disney hotel.
Ah,
You're not allowed to do that, and I won't do that because I'm not going to risk my relationship with Disney.
yeah.
So I'm sure people do it all the time, but it's against official Disney policy. So
Mm,
there's no way I'm touching that with a 10-foot pole. So
okay.
yeah,
So I'm interested in your on ramp now. So you shadow. You're pretty
yeah,
sure you want to do this. I still haven't heard a wedding being officiated
yeah.
in your story.
Well,
So how
yeah.
did you
So
do that?
what's funny is my husband and I bounced from Tampa to Orlando. We have homes in both. Our office for our logistics company is in Tampa. So my first wedding was actually Friday the 13th of October, 2023,
Hmm.
and it was downtown Tampa because I had a friend who was a photographer and she had shot a couple's engagement photos, and they said they were getting married at the courthouse.
Okay.
And so she said, that sounds really boring. Why don't you let my friend Karen marry you and we'll find a good place for it? And so they were open to it. And I told them it's my first time. I'm not going to charge you anything. We're just going to do it for the experience. But, you know, we went above and beyond. We got them the addition in downtown Tampa on a balcony with flowers and a cake and champagne, and they loved it. So it
Wow.
was
So who plans the
it
bulk of
was,
that? It sounded like it was the photographer that headed
yeah,
off that kind of meh wedding at the pass there.
yeah,
So who was
yeah.
doing all the stuff? Was there a planner involved?
Well, it was me. I
Oh,
kept going above and beyond because I was like,
yeah.
"Oh, I want them to be happy and I want it to be great." And
Wow.
that's when I learned stay in your lane, just be the officiant because it was
Interesting.
great, but I don't want to be a planner. It was a lot to coordinate and worry about, and
Okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But great for them. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So this is another, I mean, if you're keeping score at home, this is another case of it was somebody in your network, like even as you
Yeah.
were actively studying and researching how to officiate, that first
Yeah.
wedding was somebody in your network.
Hmm.
And you did it at no cost. And I have said, some people, purchase the course or whatever, and they say, "How do I get my first one?" Again, which is rare. Most people find me because they have a friend or relative. But I just say, beg, borrow, steal, whatever you got to do, pro
Just
bono
do one.
if need be. As a pro, I don't recommend, devaluing your services, I say, but to get those first ones, I
Yeah.
mean, what was that next step? You officiated, you
Hmm.
didn't charge anything. Like you say, you did it
Yep.
for exposure. How did you, for lack of a better, less pragmatic term, how did you leverage having
Yeah.
officiated that wedding to get to
So
the next one?
I don't know if it was really leveraging. I learned from a very smart man to have a website for
Mm.
people to visit. Unboring Wedding set
Oh,
me up
oh,
with my
that's me.
website. Yeah, that's you. So I
I'm
set
also
up my
fishing
website.
for what I say as well. It's like you gotta
Yeah.
get those two, the reviews and the photos. Now,
Yeah.
did any of that come out of that?
I had some photos from the
Okay.
wedding, and I'm trying to remember what I put on. I think I really just used stock images for that before that first one because I didn't have, personal images.
Mm.
But I used your template for your website, and I think it was like it had only been active for 2 or 3 days, and I magically got a lead, and it was a
Wow.
couple who were already planning to get married in April, their big show wedding, but it was leap year. And
Mm.
they said, we think it would be really fun to just get married on leap day so that we can have a second anniversary every 4 years. And we wanted to know if you would marry us, and it was like, yeah, absolutely. So I did their little ceremony, just the two of them.
Yeah.
And then they loved it so much that they asked me to officiate the big show in April. So I did
Wow.
two weddings for them. Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah.
they
It was
didn't
fun.
even see you coming in a way. Like they just thought
Exactly.
you
Yeah.
would do the little one, and that's
Yep.
amazing. It's also I don't encourage people to, put up their website and then just hope inquiries magically come in. So
Yeah. But it worked, right?
yeah, congrats.
Yeah. Yeah. It worked out well for me. So
So
thanks.
technically,
Yeah.
so you got your first, you got your second there, and like you say, so you set up your website, you kind of
Mhm.
put your shingle right out there, and even just had the stock photos, but people found you, and I've said that's where the website. I'm not the website template, any website template you use. Your face was obviously on there, and good copy where they understood your services. Can you talk a bit about why you think that couple chose somebody with, you didn't have 100 reviews, you didn't have a
Yeah.
huge online presence. What when you met them and stuff, what made them interested in you? Even though they just said, oh, it's just be the three of us, but they chose
Yeah.
you. What do you think it was?
I think back then Leah told me that one of the things that caught her eye was that I was an author of magical romance
Oh,
novels.
cool.
So I think that plays a part of it. Like if it's someone who likes reading in any capacity, I think me being an author kind of catches their attention. So,
Can I ask
I
how they
realized not
knew? How did they know you were an author?
it said it in my copy. I said something
Oh,
like, as an author of magical romance novels, happily ever afters are my passion, something along those lines.
okay.
So, yeah. So
So
that's
again,
always
that's another really great piece of advice is to be yourself. And I've said
yeah.
that about your online presence. Just people really need to, you hit a website sometimes and it's logos and pictures, but there's a ubiquitous we this and we that, and people are like,
Yeah.
who is this? So
Yeah.
you were front and center. I'm just trying to think if somebody like had a hobby of fishing or something, could they use the same strategy
Yeah,
about
that's the thing.
just
I
saying,
mean,
here's who I am, here's what I like to do.
yeah.
I on our website, I've steered away from an about page, because
Mm,
again, I just think you can interlace who you are right there on the homepage, right in the copy, your passions and things like that. So you did that.
absolutely.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And then what?
Be
The
authentic.
ball started rolling from there. Again, I'm trying to think. So you prepared your first, you got your second. Um, were you then like so that essentially technically it was your third wedding, was it?
Yeah.
When you did that little wedding and then you officiated for them the second time, was that kind of your first big one?
Yes. Yep. That was my first big one. Yeah. And
Okay.
it was nice for that to be my first big one because I had already married them.
Yeah.
So I kind of already had a nice comfort level with them. And
Yeah.
then the big show, as we called it, was kind of easy because I already married them. Yeah.
So can you tell me about what people ask us a lot about, the nerves, the like you say, you had the seal of approval because you knew them already.
Yeah.
But can you take us back to like things that you were concerned about as a sort of first time officiant, third time, but that first big wedding? Can you
Yeah.
speak to those officiants who are in that position and just say it'll be okay?
Yeah. It will be okay. Um, if you have any public speaking background, I think it's a little easier. So
Mm,
I had spoke in front of loud crowds about books and that kind of thing.
Mm.
So I had a little bit of experience with that, but because it's something new, it's always a little scary and nerve wracking.
Mhm.
Uh, the big show wedding that I did was on a beach, and it was in the morning, and it was super windy and cold, and I had no mic because they had just planned for me to project. So I was trying to project on a cold, windy beach to 60 to 70 guests. And I don't know if it was nerves or just the time of year, but my throat was kind of So then I was worried about that before the ceremony. So I
Okay.
was like taking spoonfuls of honey to kind of make sure my throat my throat would
No
be okay
dairy. No
through it.
dairy.
Yeah, no dairy. Yep. But is one thing is nervous as I used to get before a ceremony. It's like the second I get on site and I start interacting with people, it all goes away. It's like
Mm.
the autopilot kicks in and you're in your zone and you just do your thing.
Yeah.
So I think it's the buildup. You get really nervous because you're in your head about what if and this and that, but just kind of take deep breaths and like you said, if something happens, you address it. You make kind of a comment, light humor about it, and you
Yeah.
move on. So
Did you mention the cold or the lack of mic or anything like that when you were officiating? The
I did.
wind?
Yes, we did mention the cold and the wind because many people were, bundled up
Yeah.
and originally the couple told me they planned it in the morning because they didn't want it to be too hot out. So
Success.
I made a joke about that. Like, yeah, thanks guys for
That's
that.
awesome. Yeah.
It's not too hot out.
And you were able to make that joke because you kind of knew their rationale around the process, which I
Yeah,
really like. Again, when you meet the couple and plan their ceremony and you kind of know what they want and what they're thinking, you can
there you
make
go.
personal uh,
Yes.
remarks of humor in that case. So you talked about being kind of engaged when you get on site. Have you changed since then when you get on scene before you
Mhm.
officiate a wedding? What kind of officiant are you? Are you like talking up guests? Are you quietly just staying with the couple? What's your routine when you get on site?
I always check in with the couple. If I know who it is with the venue or planning team, some people you kind of start to get in a circle here in the Disney area. So you
Mm.
recognize vendors that you've worked with before. I always check in with everybody. Guests, I don't interact too much with because I'm usually busy making sure everybody behind the scenes is
Okay.
okay. But I do interact with the family and the close friends, like the wedding party, a lot.
Okay.
Normally, we've had a rehearsal, so I know a lot of them, and I'm trying to make sure they're okay. Sometimes they're more nervous than the couple. So it's a lot of just kind of playing deep breaths. It's
Yeah.
okay. Remember to bend your knees. Is everybody hydrated? Has everyone used the restroom? We're all good. Yeah.
The bend
So,
knees thing, I hear that a lot. This is a
yeah.
secret. This is a medical secret, apparently.
Well, so in Florida, it's hot, right?
Yeah.
Very hot, very
So all
humid.
Floridians
And
know bend your knees. Is that why a Canadian doesn't know that?
I think I know it. I don't know. I think I know it because back when we used to perform in choir, they
Mm.
would always say, don't lock your knees because you might pass out. And
Oh,
yeah. And then as a Disney lover, my family and I grew up going every Christmas to watch the Epcot Christmas show.
okay.
And I can't tell you how many times those poor singers pass out up there on the stage because somebody's
Wow.
probably locked up their knees and it's in the heat of the lights and they go down. So I
Wow.
try to I try to make sure no one passes out during my ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
It hasn't
So
happened yet. So knock on wood, it's
well, that's
working.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if it
Yeah.
did, you would know what to do. We're not,
Note it. Yep.
you don't
Yep.
make a joke. You just ask let's
Yeah.
pause for a
Let's
moment,
pause
and
for a minute.
that's one of
Yeah.
those things that if you're in a hot climate, you do want to almost plan for, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
getting a question here in the chat about the reviews. I mean, Scott says, I'm new and I have one fine review, but how do you manage reviews at the beginning? How
Mm.
did you build your reviews? I noticed
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
didn't say you got a review from that first couple. I mean, you asked and they didn't leave it, or what was the situation there?
I'm trying to remember. I think she did leave a
Okay.
review after like a week or
Mm.
two, so that was okay. Um, I actually did a bending of the
Mhm.
rules with
Okay.
reviews. So
Just between you
when
and
my
me here.
best
Nobody
friend,
else
I
is
married,
listening. Go ahead.
yeah, nobody else, right? Yeah. when my best friend was married, I spoke at
Hmm.
her wedding. She asked me to be a reader during the ceremony. So I figured, even though that was a few years ago, I did perform during her
Hmm.
ceremony. So would she leave me a
Yeah.
review? And she did,
Okay.
of course. And then I also asked my photographer friend to leave a review because she had watched me
Yeah.
do that
Yeah.
first ceremony and she's seen other officiants do ceremonies. So I asked her for a review. So I think I had those two reviews before any of my actual
Yeah.
couples gave me a review.
And
Yeah.
that's huge. Like if you need reviews, you
Yeah.
ask other vendors. You can even ask other guests. You can ask anybody from the wedding party.
Yeah.
You know, you can. It doesn't have to be Karen officiated my wedding. It's
The
I
couple.
was at the wedding. I watched Karen officiate, and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, Scott, that's a good.
Absolutely.
You, Karen, you said you kind of bent the rules, but there's no rule about
Yeah.
who can review. You know, if it's one of your family
Exactly.
members, you know, if it's your mom or something, that might be different. But if she was at the wedding, I'd still say it was okay.
She's allowed. Yeah. She
Yeah.
counts.
So the
Absolutely.
ball started rolling for you when you started getting those reviews, started getting those photos, your website started getting inquiries, and at that point, were you, and maybe even now, you said you had that wedding hangover. Like you got into this because you got married and you loved the magic of it. Has all this
Yeah.
scratched that itch at all?
It's scratched the itch. I always tell everybody every time I do a wedding, it's like an injection of
Mm,
joy, you know? It's I get a little bit nervous beforehand, but then it's over and it's amazing and everyone's happy and celebrating and it kind of gives me like that happy high for a few
yeah.
days. So I love it. It's if it ever stopped bringing me
Yeah.
joy, I'd probably cut back, but I just love being around people in love and hearing their love
Mm, yeah.
stories. So it's
So you
yeah,
also
yeah,
like how do you bring the wow? You've got kind of a unique, you know, Once Upon Two Rings. You're not overtly Disney, but I do recommend everybody check out your website. You got the kind of starter
thanks.
website with us, which I encourage. Like my website template is really starter. I want to launch people. You use that
And it worked.
the
It's
way that
great.
I recommend actually. But then you started saying, you know, I
Mhm.
really want my website to do a lot more, have a lot more, and you moved on and had
Yeah.
it built. I would imagine it's a great website. But how do you like? How did you think about branding and presenting yourself? What is it that you would say makes you unique? Not just like it's a two-part question, maybe not just in your branding, but also in the way that you kind of shepherd your couples through the process. But maybe we can start with branding, like Once Upon Two Rings, and what are you
Yeah.
bringing there in the way that you brand and present yourself?
Yeah. Well, Once Upon Two Rings was because of my author
Mm,
background, right? Once Upon a
yeah.
Time is how many fairy tales begin. So I wanted to do a twist on that. I didn't want to use just my name, just in case I ever decide to
Mm,
grow. That's how I thought back
okay.
then. Now that I've been in it, I don't think I would ever put officiants quote
Okay.
under me. I might mentor people and let them go out on
Yeah.
their own, but I don't think I would ever have a company of
Mm,
officiants. I don't want to manage people. They can do
yeah.
their own thing. Um, but I really wanted to focus on the fact that I am an author of magical romance novels and that's my love. Like I love magic, aka
Hmm.
Disney, and I love stories. So it was the perfect kind of blend for me to, even though I write fictional stories, I can officiate real life love stories. And it works because I get a lot of people that, love books, love fairy tales, love stories, and I I like telling their story and learning it and sharing it at their
Yeah.
ceremony.
Yeah.
So it works out well. Yeah.
Wow. And so again, in terms of the process, how have you made it your own? Maybe can you give us a bit of a scan on like when a couple meets reaches out to you? Actually, can I ask you another
Yeah.
question? Because I've talked about kind of the three ways that we get traffic. You know, kind of the cold traffic of somebody landing on your website. There's the warmer traffic of word of mouth, couples who have maybe you've officiated for them, or they had people in the seats, and they become aware of you, which kind of ironically was that first couple you had where you did the little wedding and they're like, we liked you
Yeah.
so much, we want you to do it again. And then the third one, of course,
Yeah.
is the vendors, where I call that the hottest lead, where when a planner says, oh, you need Karen Hooper, the couple's typically like, okay. So where would you say
Yeah.
you're getting most of your traffic right now in terms of people encountering you and booking you?
So probably two areas. I originally was told don't go on the knot or
Hmm.
wedding wire, that they were terrible, had bad contracts, it was hard to get out of. So I reached out to a rep early on and asked about it, and it was a year contract. And I said, can I try it out for 90 days? They said, no, we don't offer that. So I let it go. But then a year passed, and that rep came back to me and said, great news, we're now offering month to month. You can cancel at any
Hmm.
time. So at that point, I said, okay, then I'm going to try it. And surprisingly enough, I have gotten some great bookings from both of those
Okay.
sites. So I know a lot of people have good
Yeah.
or bad experiences. Mine have been good so far. But then my other strong place that I think I get is my vendors. Like I make sure I have good relationships with
Hmm.
them. Um, there's a company here, a wedding planning company that does a lot on Disney nearby resorts that I have great relationship with their whole team. So they reach out to me frequently and ask if I would like to do
How did you
ceremonies
make
for
that
them.
relationship, would you say? How did you forge
So
that?
funny enough, yeah, I originally met them and one of their coordinators when we were planning our wedding. They showed us a venue and I clicked with Jordan, who had worked. He remembered me when I went to a networking event after I'd become an officiant, and
Hmm.
we kind of looked at each other across the room and went, "Hey," and then reconnected. And of course, she's like, "Oh, I'm going to send people to you," and here we are. Now we've done several weddings
Fantastic.
together.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you do get a good amount of
yeah.
cold
So, like you
traffic,
said,
not
always
just.
be networking.
Yeah, yeah. Then that's what I was going to say. You get that cold traffic. I'm sure you get word of mouth as well, like couples and
Yeah,
guests. And then you're
yep,
also you've done the work of networking. Like I said, that's why I made that joker. Don't just create a website and then sit back and it's not Field of Dreams. You're not just going to build it and they'll come. You did the work of getting out there and networking. And sometimes it just takes one or two really good vendor relationships, and you've got more work than you can handle. Now that we kind of know how you get your couples, can I ask then, like, really quickly, what is the process that you take your couples through to get to the wedding day?
yeah. Most of the time, for some reason, Florida seems to be people are getting married here that aren't from the state.
Hmm.
So many person meet and greet. So we do a Zoom
Okay.
call and I them, just instantly chat. I always start by telling them like this is no sales pressure. I am a terrible salesperson. I'm not gonna ask you to make any decisions. You two talk, make a decision, no pressure. Um, and then usually after our Zoom call, within 15 minutes to a couple hours, they call and say, "Yeah, we want you." And I'm like, "Okay, yay, I'm honored."
Oh,
So
reverse psychology. Well
after,
done.
yeah, right, right, and it works. Yeah. Um,
Good.
but after that, I 100%, yeah, always want to meet them in person and sit down and do. So sometimes if they're out of town, like a trip to Disney between now and their wedding date. So I meet them at some point, lots of times, and have our wedding workshops. And yeah, then when it comes to their ceremony day, we already know people with each other. I also stalk them on social media and I tell them that, like friendly
Okay.
stalking. But
Yep.
I like to stalk my couple so I can see and what they do, and it kind of helps me get to know them better that way too.
Nice. What proportion of your couples would you say you tell their love story? Because we have a question here. How do you handle couples not turning in their love story? That question might be the couple is just not doing their homework, or you get a couple that says we're not really keen on our love story. Can you speak to either of those couples?
Yeah. I haven't had it in. I've had a
Okay.
couple that just want short and sweet, and it's usually because it's a very small ceremony. They may not want their love story told, but
Mm,
really, at least we'll pull out a few little personal facts so that we can customize their ceremony and tell a little bit of their love story.
yep.
I think it's also just I'm an author. Like they know that coming in, they kind of
Mm,
know that I'm all about their love story. I think maybe it's a different mindset. Like, of course, she's an author and she's going to want to tell her love story, and she says that all over her website. So
yeah.
they kind
Yeah.
of know what. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's where, you
yeah,
allow couples to self-select with your branding. We've talked about like you don't want to waste your time or their time. Like you want people to land on your
yeah,
site or see your stuff and know this person's for me. Now again, that chemistry check that you have, like you say, you might do that virtually, vibe check, whatever you want to say, where you're deciding, okay, are we a good fit for each other? But even before that, it's good to have the kind you present yourself in such a way that couples know whether or not that you're for them. Same thing with me. I say I insist on telling your love story. It's all over the place. That's the unboring part, etc., etc. So I don't typically have that, but so Mona, maybe it's a question of you want to make it really clear that it is the centerpiece of the ceremony. And for me, I like to say I'm very limited in what I can do if you don't give me what I need,
give me
and
that.
Karen, you talk about stalking a little
Yeah,
bit, which is a great little trick. But if you want to tell the couple's love story, then they've kind of got to do their homework. So can I
work.
just
Yeah,
ask you, because we're
absolutely.
wrapping up our time here, you've been very generous today. What's one of the most important things that you've learned as a now 2.5 years in, and how have you incorporated that important
Yep.
learning into your process? Something you might tell newer officiants or officiants who are going pro. What's one of those things that you've learned along the way?
Tim McGraw, always stay humble and kind. I think that's super important. And then always
Mm,
be open to learning. Like I feel like every ceremony I do, I always walk away
mm.
having learned something new and thinking, oh, I should have done this or I could have done that, that this can make it better. So just always, we can always work in progress. We can always be better. I feel like just keep learning.
Yep. And as someone who has a course in that, I'm in that conundrum of the course is
Yeah.
about 8 hours of video. It could be
Yeah.
hundreds of hours, but it's that case of here's what
80.
you need
Yeah.
to know now, because and
Yeah.
then as you progress, but there's an essential need to know to be an officiant. But here we are on lives and learning from each other, and we continue to talk, and we go to wedding MBA and all that, because it kind of is bottomless, especially when you talk about people's experiences. So stay curious. I like that you said, be
Yeah.
humble and kind. Just having watched Yellowstone
Yeah.
1883, I've become a Tim McGraw fan. Uh,
Oh,
but
nice. Love it. Love it.
not a country music fan so
Yeah.
much, but
Yeah.
yeah, like curiosity, and I've said this about just as an officiant, like when you're curious about people, about your couple and their story, and
Yeah.
what they want for their wedding and what they don't want. So that's absolutely great advice, not just to keep learning on in your business or your practice, but when you're curious just about people, vendors, that tack about like just start pounding the pavement, reach out to vendors nearby, planners, photographers, want to know about
Absolutely.
them and their business, and things like that. And so, I'm doing a bit of that here with you, and just so curious about, wow, how did Karen get her start? Because when I
Yeah.
noticed, you got the pro and then academy, and it's been quite a
Yeah.
journey. So I put your website there in the chat, onceupontworings.com. What are some other ways people can engage? You talked about your books, and
Oh,
any other way people can find
yeah.
you or engage you?
Yeah. I'm hit or miss on social media. I come in waves, right? I leave wedding MBA and I'm like, yes, I'm going to do great on social media. And I hit it hard for a month or two. And then I kind of get busy with life. So I am on
Yeah.
social media. Instagram is my strong suit. That's where I spend most of my time. I'm trying to be a
Yep.
TikToker, but I'm not doing very well at Facebook. But yeah, I'm there. That's all I'm signing
Okay.
up for. I'm not even going to attempt any
Okay.
more social medias. I don't.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Stay sane. Stay sane.
Yes.
All right, and people can Google you as an
Exactly.
author
Yeah.
as well. We're seeing love your inspiration.
Yes.
Mona says thank you. So
Thank
hopefully that was a bit helpful.
you.
The question about the love story, and yeah, summing it up: keep an open mind, be prepared for
Yeah.
lots of surprises. Karen, as I expected, you really, really dropped a lot of knowledge today, and so I am so grateful for you making the time on the day after a weather incident. The tech gods were friendly to us. So
Storm.
thanks for
I
being a
know.
member of the community. It's just an honor to be a colleague of yours in
Yay.
officiating weddings.
Yeah.
Thanks
Thank you
so
for
much.
helping me find a career I love, and yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Keep scratching that itch, the love story itch, the wedding itch.
Yeah.
See ya. Well, friends, that brings this episode to a close. Thank you so much. Wonderful indeed. Karen's story really is inspiring. I love that we are seeing many paths to success. You know, you can get to a place where you can officiate pretty sustainably in a lot of different ways. Many people know somebody and officiate their first one and they find their way to Unboring Wedding that way. But again, Karen's case, she was just like, I know I want to do that, and she followed a path of, again, networking. She got a website. She knew she needed a presence. She did start picking up that cold traffic. She did go after vendors, and she leveraged personal relationships in her network. So kind of the embodiment of all the stuff we've talked about here. 20 27, 26 episodes in of our lives and many others. But thank you, Karen. Your story really, really is inspiring. Thank you, Karen. Anita says thank you. Sabrina says thank you. And I say a big thank you as well. Friends, we will be back here next week. It'll be episode 27. I look forward to talking more about what it takes to be a wedding officiant. It will just be me solo next week. I believe we're going to take a bit of a break in the lives during the summer. I'm away for most of the month of July. August, there'll be some kind of regrouping. And then in September, we will start again here. So I will see you here next week, same time, same channel, on Wednesday for the Unboring Wedding Show Live. Members, we have members only office hours. If you're a member of Unboring Wedding, come on into the office hours on Tuesday. I'll send you an email about that. And if you're not a member yet and you've heard, hey, what is this Unboring Wedding Academy stuff? Unboringweddingacademy.com. And now the course has been fully revamped. It does come with Officiantly, our ceremony management software that takes out all the mundane steps and just guides you right through the ceremony creation process. I've been using it for my weddings. I made it. I got to say, I absolutely love it. I must say so myself. To be able to send to your couple with a click, to send to a whole bunch of loved ones, friends and relatives with a click. It really does take off a lot of time so that we can just maximize our energy being creative as opposed to doing all those steps. So thank you so much to Karen. Thank you so much to all of you. I will see you here next week. Check us out at unboringweddingacademy.com. Until then, marry on, friends. Thanks for joining and have a great day.